Hello, welcome back to Bald and Board Games. I'm Bald,
I'm bored.
and we're bringing you a review of CO2 by Vital Lacerda.
Yes. Happy New Year. And
Happy
we
Year New.
are digging into our rankings of all the Vital Lacerda games. We have a rankings video out there, which Bald and I both give our 1 to 8, or 8 to 1 technically, listing of the 8 we played. We have playthroughs and how-tos already up from earlier in 2024. Now we're actually giving you the deep dive into what our thoughts are.
Yeah. All righty. So as always, the categories are going to be going through for this game are 5 of such. We have our rulebook, we have our gameplay, our components, our design, storage, and then we get an overall average. On some of our games, you do a 6th tier, which is a story. There's no story for this other than what you're playing in, so we're not doing a rating for that, but we're going to go over our individual ratings, get the average for each of those areas between the two of us, and get the overall average. And that'll tell you if this is a Bald and Board Game certified must play or a Bald and Board Game certified don't play. So stay tuned to find out. And we're going to start with the rulebook.
Yeah, so my rulebook ranking is a 5. As mentioned in our last video when we went over Bot Factory, Vital Lacerda does really well with rulebooks and explaining, especially complex games such as this where there's a lot going on.
Yep.
My biggest love of this game and how they did the rulebook is the player board. So the player board literally comes where you have 2 little things on each side to tell you what all 6 of these symbols mean, and all 6 of those symbols are like the 90% of what you do in this game.
Yep.
So you can easily be like, oh, my opponent's going, I can plan ahead and see everything out there. So it's all explained really well. It goes in numbered order. You just follow it along every time you do it. Reading the rulebook once gives you kind of all those little like random occurrences mostly, and this gives you everything else. And it helps you quickly identify like how much money you're making when you buy and sell and things. So I think they did it really well.
They did. I also gave it a 5 for pretty much those exact same reasons. Purely speaking about, the rulebook that we have here, Vital Lacerda does the same thing in every rulebook. It's split up into its individual phases with great examples and diagrams off to the side or in the specific areas to go over those different nuances. They always have examples after explaining it to really help you learn what that thing is. And then these sections in this one too I really love is the orange stuff on the side that you see in other games like Castles of Burgundy, where it really helps you just dive back in the rulebook if you need to find something very quickly that you're trying to figure out.
I also have the little charts. It's like, oh, what are these 5 symbols? Oh, there's a chart perfectly for them.
Exactly. I'll have to change that one because apparently recycling is not a thing.
No, not in America.
Okay, next up is gameplay. So for gameplay, I give this a 4. So for gameplay, I like, in general, the way that this plays. I like constructing the different power plants in the different regions to try and stop the pollution. I like the scientist thing where they can come from one thing to go up to an area to learn. I like that you have tracks you can progress up to get things and you can combo those things together to really get a bunch of stuff. Where it falls short for me is this cooperative element. I love co-op games. Like I do. Despite how bad Steve and I are at them together, other than Sky Team, we're great at Sky Team together. But
because we don't talk to each other.
Exactly. But I love cooperative games. I think it's a lot of fun to try to work with someone. What doesn't really work for me in this one is that it's cooperative in one way, but competitive everywhere else. So it's hard to really, like, you have the fun of focusing on yourself and being selfish and trying to win, and then you get ripped away from that joy when the end of round comes and this pollution
and you killed the planet.
And it's just like, just let me do what I want to do. Forget about this. If anything, give us 2 tracks, and whoever has the least amount of pollution by the end of the game, they're the winner.
Yeah, like, maybe it's like decreased endgame scoring or something based on...
Exactly, something like that. Like I feel like you could have still had the same style, but done that and kept it fully cooperative. As I mentioned in our rankings video, it feels like the competitive side was an afterthought. Because on the other side of this board is a full like cooperative side. And this game clearly was made to be a fully cooperative game. Now this is second chance. So I never played the original one. The original one may be just cooperative, and Second Chance may have
I
been
tried
added
it
in
and
competitive.
failed.
But yeah, so I give it a 4.
Yeah. I'll preface my ranking by saying we did all of these separate without knowing what each other did. Because I also gave it a 4.
Hilarious.
For these exact same reasons. And you'll notice this in my gameplay, especially through the Lacerda games, I love development tracks.
Yep.
Because it can add comboing abilities where you can move up one, like, oh, this moves up this track, and then I can get something else. Love that ability.
Yeah.
I do enjoy the fact of, oh, I can build different things in different regions, that there is a little track down here where, oh, I need to have something in Europe. So I need to focus there. But also I want to do something somewhere else to gain more points. So I do like that where you have to like pick a route and like, oh, do I compromise Europe or do I just go over here?
I'd agree.
But 100% the same thing. I hate the co-op track. We've played this twice, one off stream, one on stream. I don't think in either game we hate drafted against each other or anything. We were trying to win, but both times we were above that 400 mark, where it's just so difficult as a 2-player game, even if you're working together, to keep that number down because you're putting so many fossil fuels out there because 2 players can't cover 6 regions that easily.
Yeah, no, what ends up happening is you end up in a situation where you both know what you have to do to prevent something from happening. And then it comes down to like, yeah, we have to do this, right? And I was like, yeah, exactly. And so if we do this and you discuss a plan, it's like, yeah, but I'm going to do this instead.
Yeah.
And you just screw each other. And then you get like dangerously close to failing. You're like, well, now I have to play nice.
Yeah.
And that's where it sucks. When you get to like, well, now I have to play nice.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Okay. Next up, the components. So again, the components, that's all the pieces and parts, not the look of them, but the feel of them, the flavor of them, the tactileness of them.
Yeah. So my components, I gave a 4.
Okay.
So simplicity of some of them were fine. The dollars, 1, 2, 5 has a little dollar symbol. Cool. Does what it needs to do. For your own internal ones, some of these are cool looking because I think how it builds off where like you stack things into here. My main issue are these 2 specifically. This is our CEPs, which go on the purple line here, go on the purple dots around the outside. This could have had a symbol on it or something. This is just really simplistic for how many are on this game board. So component itself, the feel is fine, but I wish they put a design on it, which will directly impact my design ranking as well. And then this too, it seems too simple of a component for what you're using it as. Mm-hmm. So I think they just kind of took the easy way and they're like, hey, we'll take a circle and a pentagon, hexagon actually, and just utilize those. And
the pentagon's over here for your board.
And there's pentagon as well. So that was what really docked it, but everything else was pretty solid. The cards are decent material. Mm-hmm. They shuffle nicely. They don't rip. They're like the matted finish almost.
They don't rip. We didn't try to rip them. I'm sure they would if we tried, but they don't rip easily.
Yeah. You know, there's some that you actually like, ding a corner.
Oh, yeah, Tainted Grail annoys the hell out of me. The production quality of that game, except for the cards.
Yep.
Don't get it.
All right.
I gave the components a 5 for this one because I think they went the extra mile in their creativity, specifically for those things you mentioned. So building those power plants. So first you have to get down, you know, the idea or whatever for the power plant. And then when someone starts that building of it, you know, you have your little slot in there and stuff. And then you end up finishing it by putting on the top piece. And I think that is so cool that everything just latches in together. And I thought it was just so creative to do it. Like, you know, the wind is obviously the turbines, water looks like water, and everything else fits its theme so well. For everything else, I get the simplicity aspect for these. I think they kept things simple where they're supposed to be simple. The dollar thing, like you said, you always have that. That's always an upgrade that you do if you need metal coins or something. I do agree that for the CEP, they could have done something different than this purple little circle of some sort. But it doesn't bother me to the point where it brings it down anything, specifically because of the ingenuity of the actual power plants themselves. Also, a stupid little thing. That's not what I want. I really like that these look like UFOs, even though they're not, and they have nothing to do with UFOs. just think it's fun. I think what it is these are supposed to be heat lamps. They're
Yeah.
shaped like heat lamps, and so it's like it's heating up your It's just so fun. I love it. Love the tactileness of it. Yeah,
All right.
creativity will always win me over.
So that's the physical components. But what do you think of the design of the components and everything else?
So for the design, wow, get in there. What is getting stuck? Sorry, I have to get in there and be distracted the entire time. Design, I gave this a 3.5. I think look-wise, it's not as creative as a lot of his other games. It's very simplistic. It's blotches of color and then the shapes of the different continents. Other than that, there isn't much to this. Like it's flat color. It's very kind of almost abstract looking. It just doesn't really do much for me. I feel like they could have done more to make this something more interesting to look at. I do like the design of the circular nature that they have here, but that also wasn't really needed. They could have easily done something without doing this kind of circular nature. I get they're kind of going for a globe thing potentially, but like this section, just there's a lot of simplicity here that just didn't cut it for me. So 3.5.
For mine, similar reasons, but I ticked it up slightly to a 4. I do like the circle. There's another game which we'll get to shortly, which actually has continents laid out, just kind of like you would see on a map. I think for this game specifically, it does better in the circle. I do like this color scheme a lot, where the yellow to the deep red is heating up the earth. So as it gets hotter and hotter, it gets redder and redder. So I really like how they integrated that into this design as well as the track. I do like the vibrant colors of water, sun, wind, recycling, and nature over there. For, again, my main docking design of the CEPs, I do like the whole design of this thing. I kind of put that in my design section as a rating. That's why it's high enough. I do love that.
Gotcha.
But I think overall it fit the vibe of what they were going for like the world as a whole. I think of the video by Bill Nye where he sets the globe on fire as this, where literally you have a globe right here and it's on fire.
Okay.
So solid 4.
All right. Storage.
So storage.
Disclaimer.
Yes, disclaimer. What you see on this corner of the screen over here is not the storage that this game comes with. All these green separators are from a separate purchase. The actual game itself comes with a super simplistic set of storage. So I gave it a flat 2.5. It had more than just a box. So good job. But didn't go above and beyond. There is a lot of pieces, as you can see here, especially for the different player pieces, which this does well. The original did not. So didn't win any awards. Just flat 2.5. Pretty much dead average.
Yeah, so I gave it a 2.5 as well. Mainly because it's the original storage is one solid black container that has holes to put stuff in. It's not like a lot of the Fantasy Flight games where it's just the box and you just have bags. So that's why it's not a 1 or a 0, because it did have some sort of storage.
We haven't gone that far yet.
I know.
I've got a 0.5.
Yeah.
I haven't gone a 0 yet.
But it's literally just like holes to put things in, barely offering separation for anything. So that definitely got a 2.5 for me as well. Okay. The pièce de résistance. I said that wrong. Pièce de résistance.
I'm American. I speak English.
What's your average?
My overall average with the 5 categories is a 3.5.
All right.
Doesn't do anything super special, but beats that kind of 3 mark in the middle. I don't, out of all the Italian story games, I wouldn't necessarily go back to this one. Again, mostly because of the half co-op, half competitive thing. Maybe with more players, it would run a little differently. We haven't tested that. But it wasn't that bad playing it.
Yeah. My overall average came out to a 4. So similar reasons. I would definitely bring this one back to the table, but probably to do the cooperative side. So I would get a group of people who want to just play it straight up cooperative and that would be the game. So we'll see when Earth Day rolls around if this comes back to the table for a group of people. We had some land lovers, so we'll see. But it is a lot of fun. Despite the issue with the slight cooperative thing, it was a lot of fun to try and outthink Steve while also trying to make sure that we didn't die. Because my mind was always assuming that Steve was going to screw me over. So I needed to find a way of tiptoeing that line of, okay, how do I help myself? And also ensure that we don't straight out lose the game.
Yeah.
So that was a fun
This
thing.
one we played twice on stream.
Mm-hmm.
And you won one, I won one. Because I just kind of like took your strategy from the first one and collected all the CEPs.
Yes.
Which also kind of went into a little bit of my gameplay ranking, where if you collect the CEPs from around the outside, you have a super advantage.
Yep.
So it's the one non-balanced piece of this.
Yep, that is true. Okay. So now we're going to go over our averages for each of those areas to get the official Bald and Board Games ratings for each spot. First up, we have Rulebook, which is a 5 between Bald and Board Games. Next up, we have Gameplay, which is a 4 between Bald and Board Games. Here we start to vary as we keep on going. For Components, I had a 5. Steve had a 4. Comes out to 4.5. Still not bad. For Design, I had a 3.5. Board had a 4. Comes out to 3.5 for Design. For Storage, we both had a 2.5, so that is a 2.5. And overall, the Bald and Board Games rating for CO2 Second Chance is a 3.5. So that does mean that CO2 Second Chance is officially a Bald and Board Games certified must play by the skin of its teeth.
Yeah, I would definitely put the disclaimer. Make sure you have friends that you who also enjoy co-op when playing. If you have like 4 friends who are all super competitive, this will not be a fun game for you.
Again, I think it would be for the most part. If you do it on this side, you just have that one thorn in your side the entire time. I think one time through, probably be fun with that group of friends. After that, you'd be like, okay, let's do something where I can just like murder someone.
Exactly.
Completely agree. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us here as we reviewed CO2 Second Chance. We will have a title card at the end of this with all those scores on them if you do want to reference that. But we're going to continue down our review videos for Vital Lacerda. Next up is going to be Vinos. So stay tuned for that. But thank you for joining us here at Bald and Board Games. I'm Bald.
I'm bored.
Save your planet.